The Hot Toys brown and tan Wolverine looks good except for those horrible floating shoulder pads that expose the delts. Thing is, we can fix them, but it's going to take a little bit of slicing and dicing to get this one right. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a while. I'm Desi, and you're watching Metamorphic Customs. Now, let's explain this one a little bit. As you can see here where I'm pointing out, this is a great figure, but what really bothers me, and perhaps this is just me, is the floating shoulder pads that look really weird. The original design for this character in the comics, and I know this comes from the movie, has these brown shoulder pads completely covering the delts. Now, if you move the arm up, you're fine. But if you have the arm down, it completely exposes the delt or the shoulder, and that makes it look like the pad is floating. When you have the yellow and blue suit Wolverine, you can see his arm here, those shoulder pads are a little different, those armor pads, and as you can see, they're magnetized to make it easily movable, so you can articulate the arm, and then after you've articulated the arm, you can position the pad however you want. They should have done this for this arm. Hey, lo and behold, the bottom of the delt on this figure is also metal, so a magnetized shoulder pad will work just fine. Unfortunately, the brown shoulder pad isn't magnetized, but you get the picture here. That's what we're about to do. So, in order to do that, unfortunately, you're gonna have to cut into the fabric of the figure. And I'm going to use this fake seam line here to make a clean transition. Eventually, what I'm first going to do is cut off the pad, then cut along this seam line to make a nice clean cut. Then we'll have to replace the fabric. So it will take a little bit of slicing and dicing, but the good news is we found a suitable fabric replacement, which I will link in the comments below or in the video description below. It is pleather. Don't worry, it looks like a good quality pleather. It should hold up, and it's so cheap that you can do this over and over again. It's pretty easy. So let's start with the cutting. What I'm going to do here is use a sharp X-Acto blade. You know, these are pretty cheap to come by, so just get a new sharp one. If you're going to follow along, I hope you do. And cut off the shoulder blade right where it's glued. You'll notice it's glued right at the edge of the shoulder pad, I should say, not shoulder blade. Shoulder pad. So you can just cut neatly there. The good thing here is that this cut, as neat as you're trying to get, doesn't have to be that neat, because you're going to come back and you're going to cut along that seam, which I mentioned and pointed out before. That seam line, that's where the actual clean cut will be. At this point, we're just trying to neatly remove the shoulder pad. We're going to tear this fabric off, the remaining fabric from the inside, but don't throw it away yet. You're going to use that little piece of fabric from underneath the shoulder pad later. And this is where you have to be pretty neat. You have to be pretty careful. It's really not that hard, but you just have to use the very, very tip of your X-Acto blade to cut along that fake seam that I pointed out before. It's very, very easy to do, actually. If you just have some patience and go slow, it'll take less than a minute. And look at that piece of fabric that I ripped off from under the shoulder pad. That's a pretty close match to that new material. Not exact, but pretty close. And this is what it looks like when you've cut both pieces of both pads off, and then the fabric that I mentioned right at that seam line. See, it is pretty clean cut if you just use a simple X-Acto blade. It's honestly, it's very, very easy. Just take your time, and I'm pretty sure you're not going to mess up if you just take your time. And so I'm just showing you here exactly where it was cut. So let's go ahead and make the fabric replacement. Now, these are the two pieces of original fabric that I tore from underneath the shoulder pads. And remember, I cut off a little extra piece, right? This is the piece that was right up against that fake seam line, right? And I'm showing you that for a reason. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this upside down, and I'm going to take one of those shoulder pads. You don't really need to do this, but this makes it a whole lot easier if you use the existing piece of fabric you tore off, right? Because this will give you more or less the size you need to cut. Now remember, there was a little extra piece right up against that seam line, so instead of tracing the exact component here, I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra room. One of the edges of that torn off fabric is flat. I just put that against the outside edge of the new fabric, and just kind of trace along the edge, giving myself about half an inch, a little less than half an inch, a little more than a quarter of an inch around the entire thing, more or less, and that should be good enough. Then I'm going to come in with a pair of household scissors, as long as they're, a good pair of scissors, clean, sharp. This will do the trick, and just cut out the shape you just made. That's simple. Now, there's no reason you would mess up here, but if you did, you've got an entire roll of new fabric that was only about 10, 15 US dollars on Amazon, so you've got plenty of fabric to work with if you mess up. I'm going to mark this one with a little L for left. Then I'm going to flip it white side against white side there and trace it out. This one I don't have to give the extra space because I've already done that in this piece of fabric I'm using as a template, which was the opposite side. I just got to invert it. And this one, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Take your time. And again, if you mess up with the new fabric, you've got plenty left, so no worries there. And when you're done and ready here, grab one of the sides, one of the material fill-ins you've cut out, and just start gently inserting it under the area of the suit that you previously cut out. Again, like every step of this video, take your time, but not much you can get wrong here. If you do get it wrong, just remove it, start again. You've got plenty of fabric here, and you can just take your time getting it right. Just kind of futz with it a little bit, use tweezers if needed, kind of pull up gently on the existing fabric of the suit. That's the only part that you shouldn't try to mess up, right? Once you mess up the existing fabric on the suit, that's kind of hard to replace, right? You've already cut off right at that fake seam, so try not to tear it any further from there, but it's not that easy to tear. That's a good part. But so you can manipulate it a little bit, pull it back, and just gently insert that piece you've cut out in there and line it up. It's very easy to line up. If it looks difficult, it's not. Once you've cut out that shape, this is what it looks like, right? I just put in the arms just to make sure it fits, and that's what the shoulder pad will eventually look like. But before we get there, I'm going to take the option of gluing that new material onto the existing material. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to use super glue and a toothpick as an applicator. I've used this plastic bag here just as a base to put the super glue. You can just use anything, right? But I'm just going to pour a little bit of this super glue. It's Gorilla Glue super glue gel, and I'm going to use the tip of a toothpick as an applicator. And I'm going to do this very, very slowly, very gently. If this scares you, you can skip it, honestly. But I'm just going to peel back the very edge of the existing part of the suit and just use the tip of the toothpick, as you see here, to slide the glue under it. And then the other side, be very careful here, the other side, the clean side of the toothpick, to gently press down on that edge to make sure the glue comes into contact. The two materials, fabric materials come together, and well, they adhere. So you'll do this on both sides, of course, again, being very careful, can't stress that enough. But again, you don't need to use super glue, you don't need to adhere it. If it sits pretty tight, that new material, if you allowed yourself enough and you cut enough excess material around where you can slide it under, so either way. And then we move on to the magnetization of the shoulder pads, and I've got some small magnets here. I'll also link these in the description below. They're from Amazon. I just want to show you here these magnets. See, the upper part of the arm, the shoulder or the delt area, has metal under the silicone covering, so that's why the magnets stick. I'm going to use the same super glue. I'm going to apply, obviously, glue on one side of the magnet, and here in this case I'm using metal tweezers because it allows me to go ahead and put them on the shoulder pads, kind of like the blue shoulder pads from the yellow and blue figure, right? I'm kind of replicating that here with the brown shoulder pads. And using metal tweezers makes it easier because it lets me know when the glue has dried, right? Because the magnet no longer sticks to the metal tweezer. And that's it. You've got a shoulder pad that is magnetized, and you can move it You're going to have to reposition it every time you reposition the arm, but it's the same way with the yellow and blue Hot Toys Wolverine figure. You got to reposition the shoulder pad armor every time you reposition the arm. So same deal. That's what we went for here. I do like the final look, but I must say it's not movie accurate, nor was that the goal of this modification. This was more to bring it in line with an interpretation of the tan and brown suit of the comics, where the shoulder pads appropriately fit over the delts. So I hope you guys found this video useful, if not entertaining. Give it a shot. I know it's a limited figure. There's only 3,000 of them, and I just cut into mine. But ultimately, I think it came out good. If you like the video, again, please hit like, subscribe. You know the normal process. Again, guys, thanks so much for watching. Appreciate the support, and I'll catch you in the next video.